All right, trade pros. Let me just wait till I see myself on my screen here, and then we'll go ahead and get started with this report. It's about a 10-second delay or so. All right, we are live. All right, so welcome trade pros to today's midday update. We got a pretty short one here just because we've got some high impact news coming out this afternoon at 2 and 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So what we will do on this report here is we're just going to take a look at some of the news that came through this morning. Georgia covered some of the drivers that came out before the market open, and really wasn't too much as far as actual economic data that came out this morning. Throughout the U.S. session, we did have crude oil inventories. But the major headline event for today is coming in the afternoon at 2 p.m. We've got the Fed funds rate, FOMC statement, and then we've got the press conference following that at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Let's take a quick peek at the Fed funds watch here, see how that number has increased or decreased since yesterday. During yesterday's update here, it was at around 97%, and today. Hmm, Today, the chances of that rate cut of a 25 basis point rate cut are at 99.5% and of a 50 basis point rate cut at 0.5%. All right, guys. So, majority of the market, 99.5% is expecting that rate cut. And generally, what we've seen is when these expectations have been above 60% or so, the Fed will go ahead and use that as an opportunity to go ahead and appease the market. So that's what we got on that front. The forecast is for a 25 basis point cut. And as I just mentioned there, the Fed funds showing us 99.5% probability of that happening. So that seems like it's pretty much priced in. You guys have seen today on this morning session, we kind of sold off on the open, a little bit of weakness, and we're kind of sitting in the middle. Pretty much recovered half of today's initial drop at current prices. So we see where we go from here. There were a couple of squawks that came through, which did give us a little bit of volatility. And the main squawk was the fact that Chile is to cancel that planned APEC summit in Santiago next month amid ongoing protests. So that news, what time did that come out? That news came out sometime, that was at 10:04 a.m. So that news came out at 10:04 a.m. By 10:08, that reaction has come through. Let me just open this guy up. So the immediate reaction was that stocks fell. The SPOOs fell from fell to 30.23 from 30.32. So just over 10 handles there before the move largely paired back. So it was about a 10 handle move on the back of that news, and we're pretty much right back where where we were before the news. So quick recovery. Again, it is FOMC day today, so that's kind of to be expected. You're kind of expecting consolidation into that news report. We also, at 10:46, China has offered Macau as an alternative for the APEC summit. So that news came through. And then the other big driver here was the EIA crude oil inventory report. And this report came in a little bit mixed here. The crude oil numbers were expected to see a build of 1 million barrels. That was actually a build of 5.7 million barrels. So relatively bearish on that number. Gasoline was expecting to see a draw of 2 million barrels. That came in at a draw of 3 million barrels. So bullish on the gasoline number. Nice big bear on the crude number, and distillates as well, expected to see minus 2.5 million barrels, and we came in at minus 1 million. So a bit of a draw on that front as well. Not as much as expected, so it's still bullish, but not as bullish as a larger than expected draw. All right, so the three numbers today: crude was bearish, gasoline was bullish, and distillate was basically neutral. So a bit of a mixed report. What we did see on crude, though, is a nice drop into the report, a little bit of a pullback into that overnight low, and from there we've kind of sunk down to previous day lows where we're currently bouncing off of. All right, so that was a majority of the news. Also, as Georgie mentioned, if you guys missed it in the morning, the Q3 advanced GDP number came in at 1.9% versus 1.6%, and personal consumption also increased from 2.6%. Sorry, yeah, 2.6% expected, came in at 2.9%. Another driver, Bank of Canada left interest rates unchanged at 1.75%, and CAD dollar seeing a bit of weakness on the back of that. All right, so that's what we had on the US session. That's pretty much what we're watching for here. I did see a couple of other squawks come through at 11:37. US President Trump and China President Xi were hoping to sign a phase one trade deal in Chile. Deal is still being written. Deputy level trade talks are happening almost continuously. Expected to be one more primary level phone call, says FBN's Lawrence. And then about a minute after that, we had U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin saying that Chinese agricultural purchases will take some time to scale up to 40 to 50 billion US dollar annual target. We're not at the point of making recommendation to President Trump on disposition of December 15th tariffs on Chinese goods. And 1204, White House says there's no secondary site at the moment for the APEC summit. Says timeline for US-China trade deal does not change. All right, so that's basically where we're at this current point in time. Let me turn the squawk on just so if anything does come through, I can let you guys know in real time. All right, so that's basically what we had on that front. Let me jump onto the charts here, get rid of my camera, and let's go ahead and get started here. So before we jump onto the charts, let's just say hello to everybody in the chat. So Stephen, hello. George, hello. Will, good to see you in here. Roni, Samtel, VIP, Wilfred, hello. Hello from India. Awesome. There's Isa, Angry Rant, and Mayank. Welcome, everybody. All right, so here is the quote board for today's session. And relatively light volume, as we were saying yesterday. Don't really expect too much until after the report. 376,000 contracts traded on crude oil. We are down 1.46% on today's session. Crude oil will actually take the Globex opening. So the open you see on here is the Globex open, which was around 55.53. However, for our purposes, we use the pit session, the US pit session, which was 55.31. So at this moment in time, we are both below the previous day close and below the US pit session open. So sentiment at this moment, you can say, is bearish. And similarly on the S&P 500, very light contracts traded, only 500,000. And, you know, this is really, really light. But this is what you would expect going into the FOMC statement, which, you know, majority of traders are going to be watching today. So I would anticipate that to end up the session around 1.5 to 2 million thousand contracts, with the majority of that coming probably in the last 2 hours of trade. Awesome. There's a squawk coming through here, guys. All right, so that was just a squawk coming from U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. He was just kind of speaking on the Iran news, Iran sanctions. So nothing really on that front, nothing important. All right, so crude oil and SPUs, both relatively light volume. S&P, as you guys can see, you know, we had a nice drop off the pit session, and we've kind of recovered that since then. So a little bit of choppy trading happening at the moment. We are in the middle of the range, so this is where you can expect to get pretty chopped up. So it wouldn't be trading in here. So let's close out the quote board. Let's take a look at our charts here. These guys are the range bar charts. All right, so here's our crude oil, and approaching those swing lows we were mentioning the other day. You know, we had that initial move below those swing lows. We were saying that was your target. If that goes, the next target's going to be the next lows down here. And you guys can see we did break, rotated up, formed another lower high, and we're kind of approaching fresh lower lows. So if we can get back below those current lows here, 53.60 is probably going to be the next target for this week. That's what I'm seeing on that front. As far as the current session pivot, you guys will see we did trade above the pivot, but we got back below it. We're now currently testing the S1 as support. And you can see on the 1 hour chart or 1 hour bar chart here, it's 1211. So this current bar is in the process of forming. But the previous bar here that had closed shows that S1 did hold as support. We did dip below it, but we closed above it. So there's going to be a fight here, right? And we are right around previous day lows as well. You guys can see that's this green little line here that comes in at the 54.69s or so. And that's kind of where we're bouncing off of at this point in time. All right, so right now S1 is holding as support. I could see a little bit of a pop probably into these 55s or so if we're going to continue on lower. So that's kind of how I'd be playing crude oil. And that's what we got on that front. Let's open up the chart here. Again, you got your previous day lows right down here, right around these 55.69s or so. And this was the US session open. We did catch a bit of a bid, sold off, then we kind of double topped here. And then 10:30 came right into that oil report. Nice little sell off. You got the algos doing their things in here, the little pullback to the overnight low. And I know some of the team caught that. I know I didn't catch it, but I know George caught it somewhere in this region here for a nice flush back down below the 55. So that was kind of one of the nice trades in the room today. S&P 500 was a little bit more difficult, and crude was really kind of the opportunity of this session, right? So as it stands, you are seeing lower lows, lower highs. Yes, we did just trade into the previous day low. Tried it again, nice big wick here. You're seeing the volumes kind of picking up. So yeah, you'll probably get a rotation higher from here. Where can that go? Probably into this region here where we had those swing highs, 54.90s to the 55s. A little bit of a pop, rotations, sell that puppy back on down. All right, that's what we got on that front. On S&P 500. All right, we were kind of mentioning this rotation into R1 looks a little bit suspect, and that the pivot was kind of holding as support. So we did trade into that previous swing low. You can see we did make a move down, and then we rotated back up. So we've traded below S1, but we closed back above it. So at the moment, S1 is holding as support 30.2792. You can just call that 30.28. So as this point, we did have that rotation lower, that rotated back up, and now we're kind of holding S1. So see if they can make another drive up to that pivot point right around those 37s or so. All right, that's kind of what I'm watching for on this chart here. You guys will see a bit of a consolidation going on. Not the clearest up top here. You know, we did have resistance. We poked our heads above again. And on today's session, we kind of sold off into this little level here where we held it, and now we're rotating up. So you guys will see US session open was right around there. Big sell-off on the open, and take a look at where we opened the session to the low. We're pretty much halfway from that sell-off, right? So not quite out of the gates or out of the water here for the bulls. They can still drive this up, but at this point, you know, what you are kind of seeing is lower lows and lower highs coming through. So this is a potential lower high here. If we fail to get back above this VWAP, we'll probably make another test of these lows. If not, if we continue back above that, get back above the open, then we'll probably make a drive back towards those previous day highs. What I will say though is the last two times that the Fed has cut rates, back in July and in September, stock market was on its highs. So that's check today. It's on near its highs, and we saw a pretty aggressive sell-off on you know, both of those events. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating today. Maybe we get up to the top of the range, but ultimately if they do cut, I'm seeing a little bit of weakness for the shorter term. All right, so that's what I got on that front. Let me pull up the TradePro Performance Index, and then we'll go ahead and sign off, and we will see you guys in the Elite Room. So let me just pull up this Performance Index here. I will say this, excuse me, today was a bit of a tougher session. You know, we tried to keep the team patient, but sometimes, you know, the market has other plans for you. And so this is where we're at today, October 30th. You know, at the time that we signed out, We did have a majority of the team was down. 48% was down, 37% was up, and 13% was flat. So, yeah, live positive is above 50%. But this is kind of the concerning number here. And, we kind of asked the team what's going on, what were some of the challenges on the session. And, it usually comes back to patience, not being patient enough, getting caught in the chop, trying to catch the moves. Today, when that news came through, it was volatile for maybe 5 minutes, and then the volatility dried up. And it's easy to get caught in those kinds in slow markets when you get a quick burst or quick injection of volatility. You're looking for a continuation of that, and then it dries out, and you waste all of your bullets trying to catch a market that's not really moving, right? So um, this is what it's looking like today. We do have the elite room later on today, so I do I do imagine we're going to get this number back up. But as it stands, live positive was 51% today, guys. All right, so let's sign off on this update here. Appreciate you guys for showing up. And we will be trading the FOMC session live here with the team in the elite room. So that's going to start 1:45ish, Georgie. Yeah, 1:45ish. We're going to start with the elite room. So elite subscribers, if you guys are on here, jump into the elite room at 1:45. We will see you in there. YouTube, come on and join us. No better time to do it. And you guys can see how professional traders trade. If not, and you prefer to do it on your own, that's fine. In that case, we will see you on here tomorrow. All right, so for the remainder of today's session, unless we see you in the elite room, if you will be trading, remember those rules: patience, diligence, and discipline. All right, until tomorrow, guys, good luck and good trading. We'll see you then. Ciao.